Hello and welcome to Money and Impact. My name's Suzanne Caldeira. I'm a mortgage originator with Movement Mortgage. I've been in lending for 23 years. I've handled thousands of mortgages, and a lot of my job deals with money and how people work through their stresses of money, how they come up with money. And the other title of my show is Impact. And there have been so many people that I've been lucky to have met throughout the course of my life that you'll get to meet the more that you follow our show. And today, my special guest is Sam Bianchini from CMS Home Inspection. Sam is an amazing gentleman. He started his company in 2019 and has quite a story. Sam, thanks for joining.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's delightful to talk to you. You have such an interesting story of how you came from the trades and then went into home inspections, but you've got an interesting story of what got you there. So tell us a little bit about you.
I did construction since I was in my early 20s. After a while of that, just wanted to find something for myself, and I had bought and sold my house a couple times, went through the transactions, and was kind of interested in seeing what the inspectors were doing and thought that'd be something I could possibly do, but I stuck with trades for a couple more years until eventually I said, let's just start my company. I went through the process, and there was issues that I had with what I saw out in the real estate world as far as home inspectors, and I thought, I think we need more good ones that work for the clients, in particular the home buyers. That's where I decided to launch my company finally in 2019, went through the licensing process, and now I do Rhode Island, Mass, and Connecticut. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I've been lucky. A lot of home inspectors haven't been on, unfortunately, with the market being a little toxic, a little crazy, but I've lucked out, and I'm very happy with that.
Were there any things in particular that you noticed from those inspectors that you hired to inspect the properties that you had bought personally?
I mean, it was kind of funny, some of it. Like the first house I bought, the inspector, seemed like he was in a rush. Definitely seemed like he was in a rush. Didn't even open up the panel, which I found odd. And he walked on the roof. It was a very small house, very low roof, so easy to get on. And he found some issues with it, but one of the issues with it is he noticed there was some damaged sheathing, roof sheathing, and he just recommended repair, but he didn't note or tell us at all that it was the wrong roof material. It was asphalt shingles, which you're only supposed to use if it's on a 2-inch slope per foot minimum. This was a very flat roof. It was less than a 1-inch slope. So we put the new roof on, and I move in, and first winter there, we're having the same issues. It's leaking into the bedroom. So that's when I figured out, oh, well, all right, that's no good. Just some other silly things like that happened. And when I went to sell my house, I had an inspector who said some stuff, like one time mentioned I didn't have a window where I had a window, and I just found that kind of odd. Like, how do you think I don't have a window pane in there? But yeah, silly things like that. And my second house I bought, the inspector told me all my roof flashing was fine, and it wasn't at all. Like, it was just a corner piece jammed up against a chimney. There's nothing to stop the water from going behind it. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll just start doing this myself now.
And was that scary? Was that scary saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to leave my 9 to 5, so to speak? Was that scary venturing out on your own?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Because, before I launched too, it was 2019, I was doing the internship that you have to do, the shadowed inspections. And at that point in time, the market was normal. This was before COVID and all that started taking on, and everyone started waiving their inspections. So I was going into it, and I was like, well, I knew how much money I needed to make to pay the bills. So I was like, I don't really need to do that many inspections. I don't have a lot of bills, really. I'm lucky. I've set everything up to basically be back like when I was still in construction, only making the low 20s was when I first bought my second house. And I actually, after that, I started making much more as a excavator operator. So I didn't really need to make much money to make ends meet, so I knew how many inspections I needed to do, and it's not many. But then when COVID hit and everyone started waiving inspections, and I was trying to launch into that, it was a little scary because you hear all these inspectors closing up shop, some of them laying off inspectors that they have working with them. And there I was just little old me who didn't really have many connections, and there was no networking events going on, so I set up my business a little odd because of that, and also because I wanted to work for the consumer, the client. All my stuff ended up being internet presence, getting reviews from clients, advertising online, Google business ads, stuff like that, working my website's SEO to have the client, when they search for a home inspector, they find me, hopefully, at least in one of the top results. And that's where I get most of my work from, even to this day. While I do have connections now with agents that are happy to use me, still the majority of my work, I would say 60%, is clients finding me directly, at least 60%, possibly more. And that's what I had to do because of the market at the time and because of global conditions where you couldn't just go out to these after-hour networking events and mingle. And, it's a lot easier to get work and a lot cheaper to get work from an agent, but I did it the hard way, and I've lucked out and been plowing forward ever since.
Have you had any weird situations with an inspection?
Yeah, plenty. I couldn't even begin. I don't know where to begin. I've had inspections where the seller, I go back to pick up the radon device 2 days later, and the seller is swearing at me because I found a roof leak, and he's adamant it's not active when I have a $600 moisture meter that shows it's active, and it's in an area he was talking about, like it was from a ridge vent like 2 years ago. I'm like, you wouldn't have water stains from 2 years ago showing as wet, and it's not near the ridge. It was somewhere completely different. And, just people get emotional during the transactions. I've had agents ask me prior to the beginning of an inspection to go easy. Tell me, ask me about my company, try and smooth me, try and entice me with further inspections, and say stuff like, I like that you're your own company, so you can do things your own way. You don't have to report on X, Y, Z if you don't think it's a big deal. I'm like, well, I have that standards of practice I'm licensed with that I have to follow. I'm unfortunately going to do that, and if you don't like that, that's okay. So yeah, I've had plenty of weird situations like that. I've had situations where 90 minutes into an inspection, and seller agents telling me to get out the house, and because she has another appointment to get to, where it's like a 2,400 square foot house where I'm doing the septic, I'm doing the well, I'm doing radon testing, I'm doing air sampling, I'm doing the home inspection itself, where there's 2 attic spaces, a 2-car garage, 2 oil tanks, 3 electrical panels. I'm like, and that's not reasonable to expect that done in 90 minutes. And unfortunately, I just tell them I have my job to do. Buyer's agent can lock up if you have somewhere to go. Sorry, it is what it is. I'm here for my client. That's what I'm going to be here for. If we need to reschedule, let me know, but otherwise, let's try and work this so we can get it done today. I've had some really weird experiences like that, yeah.
Well, that was one of the things that really appealed to me about you, is how consumer-focused that you are, and also how educational that you are throughout the process. And for any of the viewers seeing this, what is the typical time frame for an inspection?
So, house in regular condition, not perfect, not in disrepair. Average condition home, 1,500 square footish. I would tell you, plan on roughly 2.5 hours. Worse condition, a little bit longer. Better condition, a little bit shorter. Even a new construction house, 2,000 square foot, I'm gonna probably be there at minimum 2 hours, because we're still checking things no matter what. It's not. When you find more issues, it does slow down the process because we now have to take more photos. I personally do my reports on site, so all my reports are delivered as soon as I leave the house. I find that adds on about half hour, 20 minutes to half hour at most to the inspection itself, versus if you take a bunch of photos and report on at your house later on. But I know inspectors that do that, and that takes them 3 hours of reporting, because we're taking like 300 photos. I go through my gallery of the house I just inspected. I took 302 photos of a little 1,600 square foot house. Some of those are just photos showing things working as intended to cover my end in case something goes wrong after I inspect, showing the stove work, showing the heat works, all that good stuff. But trying to go through those 300 photos after a fact and parsing through what this photo went through what is time consuming. So I do it on site, it's automatically added there. And before I drive off to the next inspection, my report's sent. So one of those things where clients ask me, how long for the report. A lot of inspectors now are same day. Some are still the 24 to 48 hour thing, which I'm seeing. One issue with that is I'm seeing a lot of clients now just doing 5-day contingency windows rather than your 10-day standard. They're shortening it to be more competitive. And if you're 5 days and you're taking 2 days to send a report, that leaves you 3 business days to schedule and get there. And I might be booked out that far. 3 days is not very far in advance notice, unfortunately. So that's something that's unfortunately happened, and I find not benefiting the client is this make our offer aggressive by shortening this already short contingency window.
Yeah, and for anyone that's watching, when you're buying a home, depending on the state, there are timelines that you need to follow, and those timelines are either business days or working days of if you're going to get an inspection, when you need to get an inspection done by. Now, in these hyper-competitive times, how have you dealt with situations where it's the inspection for informational purposes only?
I love when people tell me that, because they tell me, this inspection, by the way, is for informational purposes only. Okay, cool. All my inspections are in my book, at least. To me, I'm here just to give you information. I'm not here to try and help you knock down a price off of a home. I'm here just so you can make an informed decision about what you're buying. If you use my report to buy it as is, to ask for negotiation on prices, to ask for repairs prior to sell, or whatever you want to do, that's between you, your agent, and everyone else there in the process. That's got nothing to do with me. So I see that a lot. I get told that a lot, and it doesn't affect my inspection at all, one way or the other. It's the same inspection, no matter what. I do see a lot of people saying it's for informational purpose only, and then still negotiating though, at least in Rhode Island, because the contract just says it's contingent on a home inspection, period. And you can jot down a little note that says for informational purpose only, but doesn't override and supersede the previous line. So I see a lot of agents still doing that. If I find something substantial, at least. They won't do that for like $500, then a window won't stay up. But when I uncover something major, there's still room to renegotiate, even if the inspection was for informational purposes only. At least here in Rhode Island. Mass, the contracts are a little different. But yeah.
Do you find that people's emotions can get in the way, whether it be the consumer or the realtor?
Absolutely. Consumers' emotions, in particular, the client, the one buying the house, can get in the way. One thing I see a lot is bringing parents, and I just did an inspection. Young guy buying a house with I believe it was his wife. They have a little kid, and they're probably buying their first house, but it's an old one. It's in East Bridgewater, Mass, and it's stone wall foundation. Part of it's crawl space, and the father's just saying stuff like, "You got this whole crawl space, you can't store anything, and it's all dirt floor. What do you want to buy this house where you can't use half your basement?" And it's like, well, I think the kid knew this when he put the offer in. And it's just parents are very protective, and they sometimes will make mountains out of molehills. Home inspectors have a bad rap for being deal killers. I say fathers are probably worse. They all want to be a home inspector. It's pretty funny. I see emotions get involved from the seller. Sometimes the sellers attend inspection, which that was more common during COVID because they couldn't leave. I still see that sometimes because they're working from home, or sometimes you just get these aggressive guys who want to shadow me and argue with me about every step of the way, and they think that somehow if they say something that contradicts what I'm showing as evidence, like, well, I've never noticed that. Okay. They think that they can somehow defeat evidence. You get that emotion. And then sometimes, I've come across some agents that got a little emotional. I had one that swore at me. I went back out to do a re-inspection, and there was still 2 active water stains, and they had hired a plumber to attempt to locate them. And they attempted with a borescope, but they drilled like a whole hole in the ceiling, like 10, 15 feet away from the source, from the stain. And then he couldn't find it. He says it's all good. And there I am with my moisture meter, my thermal camera, that both are showing wetness in those two areas. And you can see that since the inspection I did 2 months prior, that the stain has changed shapes. And the agent just is like, you're really something else, and swearing at me about it, because in her eyes, I'm probably, like, they were supposed to close the next day, and unfortunately this buyer, their agent kind of dropped the ball on all the negotiation, and they would last minute still wanted me to go out there and hired me for the last day before closing, which I knew I was gonna walk into a bit of a storm there, and it definitely happened, and from their point, the agent's standpoint on that one is, I'm trying to kill the deal, and I'm not. I'm trying to answer my clients' questions. Are those stains active? What's going on with those? Because they said they fixed them, but they said they were never needed to be fixed. It's like, well, that's not how water works. You need to fix it. It doesn't just stop.
Let's face it, buying a home can create a lot of emotions, but also no home is perfect.
Yep.
And I think having an inspector and having somebody like you out there that can let people know what particular things that they may need to do is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things I do stress to my clients is my inspection report is going to be a list of everything wrong with the house. Every house has something. My job is just to find out something, to let you know what it is, so you can be ready to address it. There might be some things that you're not going to care about too much that you can put off. There's going to be some items that are going to be priority items. There's stuff with my house. My house is from 1900. There's a couple things I want to do my house still that I'm just haven't gone around to. But you can live with some of these things for a while. No house is perfect. New construction even doesn't matter. We're always going to find something. There's always going to be something. Everything's fixable at the end of the day. There's never been a house I've come across where it wasn't the right house for somebody. It might not be the right house for my client because they may be looking for something more move-in ready, and it turned out it wasn't. But it's going to be the right house for somebody. So that's just my job, is to help them. There's a lot of education with the inspection, how to maintain your house. Some simple, silly things like with your furnace or AC system, where the filters are. You have a sprinkler system, be aware you need to winterize that. Basic home maintenance tips, getting your furnace or boiler serviced regularly, stuff like that. A lot of clients have no idea about a lot of stuff. If I say the word receptacle, I find most clients' heads spin, and you have to say outlet. Although an outlet there's a lot of technical jargon, and I try and keep it simple for my clients when I'm talking to them. Like, I'll sometimes slip up and we'll call it a receptacle, but then I'll repeat myself and say outlet. An outlet is where electricity flows out of, so a light switch, a light fixture, or a receptacle where you plug in your devices, those are outlets. So all receptacles are outlets, but not all outlets are receptacles. So I do differentiate them in my reports, but when I'm talking with a client, I'm trying to make it easy to understand. And we'll do that. I've had clients where I inspected their house a year after they moved in, and they didn't know that they had a second furnace up in the attic. So there's a lot of home tips that we're telling people. Even if you own a house, I can help you be more familiar with your house. Like I said, I mentioned that guy didn't know he had a whole second furnace he had to maintain after living in the house for a solid year. I love people.
What have you found has been helpful that sets you apart from other inspectors that are out there?
My thing is I just try to be thorough, attention to detail, fast delivery of the reports, full service, meaning I do septics here in Rhode Island, Connecticut. I do wells. I'm licensed for radon testing. I can do mold sampling, mold testing. I do sewer scopes even. Pretty much almost anything inspection related other than lead and asbestos, which you just need the special licenses for that. We're familiar with common products that contain those materials, like asbestos, for example. Houses where it looks like chip and paint, that might be lead. I can point that out to clients, but I just don't do the testing. Another thing that sets me apart, I think, is follow-up with the client. Clients will call after with questions, email, text, whatever they prefer. I'm always fast to respond to them. I just had a client who I did an inspection for about a month ago, and they're still under contract, and during the inspection, the propane tanks were completely empty, so they couldn't test out the heat or their stove. So they're still waiting to get those filled, and they emailed me Sunday asking about it, and they gave them my availability and hadn't heard back. So last night I emailed them back, and they replied back, still waiting to hear from the other side. And stuff like that, where even if I don't hear from you, I'm going to follow up with you in case you haven't followed up with me after you ask me a question. I see a lot of inspectors take a little while to get back to pick up the radon. I always try and get there as soon as the test is done. I don't want to leave people waiting. My mold testings usually delivered, results are usually available the next business day. So fast turnover times for all that stuff. Really consumer focusing on the client, making sure I'm available for them. I think that's a big benefit to my company versus some others that I hear about. Like, I've had agents be like, I like you because if I have a question, I can text you and you'll respond. I have this other guys I've been using for years, and sometimes he just ghosts me, or it'll take a couple days. And that's where I think I benefit a lot, is availability. Get back to you as fast as possible.
Let's get off the topic of inspections. Why don't you tell the viewers about Slinky?
Oh my God, my baby boy Slinky. I love that, man. So yeah, my company's name, Coco Mindy Slinky, is what it stands for, CMS. CMS is Coco
Mindy. Didn't know that.
Yeah, yep. So Coco, Mindy, Slinky, that's my 3 dogs. And they're all rescues, and Slinky in particular is a little goofball. He was born with, I think you say it, lissencephaly, which is a smooth brain. So he's 5 now, I want to say, coming up on 6 soon. And he's mentally challenged a bit. He has to be on medication to control his seizures. And his left and right hemisphere don't communicate right, and his corpus callosum wasn't formed right. But he's just a little sweet baby who loves to be picked up, loves to be held. He loves to be held like a baby. I hold him like a little football baby. And, he'll come up and, he'll cry sometimes when he's tired, but he wants to chew like a baby, like with a binky. So you got to put a little bone in his mouth, and then he'll chew it for 2 seconds and fall asleep. I love the man. He's a sweet little baby boy for me. I was looking for a special needs dog on Pet Finder after we got Coco and Mindy. I was looking for a wheelchair dog because I live in a ranch. So I figured this is the perfect house for them. They can get around. We can just put a ramp from the back deck that's like almost ground level. Couldn't find a wheelchair dog, but found Slinky, and they mentioned his balance issues, which he has really bad balance issues because he can't figure out his balance. He'll lift his leg up and then fall over into it. Always has his tongue hanging out because he can't control. It doesn't communicate with his brain. And so found him, and he's just my little baby boy. Yeah, I'm happy to have a son again. I had back before we got Mindy, we had Beagle Max, who very unfortunately, very aggressive cancer. And then I got the 2 girls, and I was like, I have 2 daughters. That's amazing. And I was like to the wife, I want a son so I can teach him to play football. And that's why we have Slinky now.
What drew you to go to special needs dogs?
I'm fortunate enough to, at the time at least back then, I was doing decent money doing excavation operator, plus the overtime. So I was like, hey honey, we're doing okay for ourselves. We have money, let's help out something. If it was up to me, I'd have 20 freaking dogs. I'd be swarmed with them. Liz keeps me sane. My wife, she keeps me sane. She's like, nope, we're not doing it anymore. Slinky counts as 3 dogs alone probably. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
That was one of the things. It was the glue when I first sat with you was learning about that, and learning the heart that you have, and a heart for animals. Yeah. Just gets me. Yeah,
I love animals, all of them. We have a bird that just made a little nest in our overhang of our deck. We have a little roof overhang for it, and we've just watched them growing up. And we have 3 little baby birds in there now, and we're taking all these photos and posting them on our Facebook. We love it. Liz is like, mama bird flies away every time we open the door because it's right in front of the door to the deck. And Liz is like, mama bird, you don't have to fly away. I love
That's
animals,
awesome.
yeah.
You guys have, you feed squirrels and do all that?
Not squirrels, no, but I do love seeing the squirrels run around the yard. The dogs don't. We had recently a possum underneath my deck as I was trying to replace some of them. I was like, I'll just let him be for a little while and we'll come back because he was chilling. I didn't want to interrupt him. He seems to be sleeping. I don't want to make a bunch of noise.
You know the deal with possums?
They're great.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're great.
They eat?
Yeah, they eat
ticks.
a lot of like ticks and stuff. Yeah, they're good for you. Yeah, them bats. There's a lot of good animals for you. Animals are there's not a single animal that you could remove from the ecosystem that would not cause catastrophic repercussions. Yeah, I like them all. They're good. Someday my dream is to have a horde of animals. I want like 3 dogs. I want a duck. I want a miniature horse, a miniature donkey, some goats. I want those little fainting goats.
Sam, it's been great, and I want to say thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, viewers, for watching. This is Money and Impact. I'm Suzanne Caldeira. Tune in next time.